When you think of Fiji, chances are you're picturing postcard beaches, right? Crystal clear water, total paradise. But behind that image, there's another story unfolding, a much darker one. It's a story about a nation grappling with a crisis that's shaking the very foundation of its justice system.
And this whole thing, it really boils down to one single, deeply disturbing question. When you're fighting for justice, what happens when the one thing you need, the proof, just vanishes?
And listen, this isn't just some abstract idea. Those are the actual words of a Fijian magistrate spoken in a courtroom. It's a quote that points to a massive problem, one that strikes right at the heart of law and order.
So let's start with a court case that didn't just stumble, it completely fell apart because the evidence disappeared.
Just look at the facts here. Back in September 2018, a man named Neeraj Ramesh gets arrested with 4.5 grams of meth. Fast forward nearly 6 years to March of 2024, and he walks free. The real question is, how on earth does that happen? How does a case like this just collapse?
Well, it fell apart because of a complete and total breakdown. First, the drugs themselves, the 4.5 grams of meth, vanished from a secure police safe. The lab report that confirmed it was meth, that was gone too. But it gets worse. The arresting officers never even wrote down the arrest in their notebooks. The drugs were never officially logged as evidence. The magistrate had no choice. He called the evidence manifestly unreliable. No proof, no case. Simple as that.
Okay, so you have missing evidence. But from there, things escalate. This pattern of failure goes from a collapsed court case to something much, much more serious: a death in state custody.
In April of 2026, a man named Joan Vakarisi dies. Now, he was an alleged drug figure, and he died while he was being questioned by Fiji's military. The incident immediately set off alarm bells, but the official story that came out next only made things more confusing and a lot more suspicious.
And this is where the story gets really murky. You've got two official documents telling two completely different stories about how this man died. The military's first account said he had a sudden and severe medical emergency. But then you have the medical death certificate, which says the cause of death was severe traumatic head and chest injuries caused by blunt force. Faced with that contradiction, the military retracted its statement, and the police had to open a murder investigation.
You know, this was so alarming that the Fiji Law Society had to step in. They released this powerful statement saying that any death in state custody is a matter of great seriousness. They demanded the one thing the public desperately needed to hear: a call for a prompt, independent, and impartial investigation with zero outside influence.
So you've got these individual cases that are already raising huge red flags. But then, a high court judge, in a totally separate case, delivers a series of rulings that suggest this isn't about just a few isolated incidents. This might be something systemic.
And to give you an idea of the stakes we're talking about, the case the judge was ruling on involved a single meth seizure valued at a staggering $2 billion. That's the world we're operating in here.
In his ruling, Justice Aruna Aluthgay dropped an absolute bombshell. He said he found, quote, alarming evidence that some officers of the Narcotics Bureau were complicit with drug dealers. Think about that. The very police unit designed to fight drugs was, according to a judge, working with the dealers. That's a direct accusation of corruption right from the bench.
And he wasn't done. The judge also pointed out that getting such a huge shipment of drugs into the country in the first place was proof of how weak Fiji's border protection was, basically making the nation a soft target for international traffickers. And maybe most importantly, he made it crystal clear this wasn't just a local problem. He confirmed that a foreign drug cartel was actively working with collaborators inside Fiji, creating the sophisticated international crime network right on the islands.
So let's just step back and put this all together. What you have are two completely different narratives. On one side, you have the official line asking for calm and trust. And on the other, you have this mountain of damning evidence coming out of courtrooms and official records.
Here's the official position from the police commissioner. He's asking the public for patience. He says, trust the process while they investigate. It's a call to let the system do its job and not to jump to conclusions.
But how does that request for trust really hold up against what we know for a fact? We have a drug case that got tossed because evidence disappeared from a police station. We have a death in custody where the official cause of death changed from medical emergency to a murder investigation. We have a high court judge on record saying police are working with drug dealers, and we have another case, a billion-dollar cocaine bust, where police officers themselves were accused of stealing money from the suspects.
And that brings us to what this is really all about. This goes so much deeper than just crime and punishment. This is about the integrity of the very institutions that are supposed to protect people.
See, at the end of the day, the real crisis here is a war for trust. Because when evidence vanishes from police custody, when official stories keep changing, when judges are literally warning of corruption from the bench, public confidence just crumbles. And that erosion of trust is a far bigger threat than any drug shipment.
And when you lay it all out on a timeline, you can see this disturbing pattern, this clear escalation. It starts in March 2024 with the case collapsing. Then, by August 2025, a judge is sounding the alarm on corruption. And by April 2026, you have a death in custody being investigated as a murder. Each event just chips away a little more at that public faith.
So it all comes down to this one final critical question. Our entire system of law and order is built on trust. If that foundation cracks, if people no longer believe that the police or the courts can actually deliver justice, what happens then? That is the crisis Fiji is facing right now.